So we're asking whether inheritance tax is unfair. It's something that you could be concerned about if you have experience with inheritance tax system already. Do give us a call, 0207 862 2222, and we'll speak to you in just a moment. Data published by HMRC shows it received £7.5 billion in inheritance tax receipts in the last financial year, a record amount which was £400 million more than the year before. That's quite substantial. Now, the amount of tax collected when people die has surged ever since the Chancellor froze the threshold at which families start to pay tax on their inheritance, which is £325,000. Anything more than that, and you will be charged 40%, with some discounts if you donate to charity. Carole, do you think this is unfair?
You know, I don't know much about inheritance. What I do know is that I know why people hate it, because they think it's a tax on money that's already been taxed throughout people's lives, and it's a tax on dead people. And so the money that people have worked hard for all of their lives is taxed again, and they've paid tax on that money and it's taxed again. But it doesn't affect that many people in this country. It only affects 4% of all estates in this country, and it accounts for something like 0.3% of GDP, which is not very much. And there's another exception to what you said. It is 325 grand unless the person leaves you their house, a direct descendant in the will.
But it has to be a direct descendant.
That pushes the threshold to 500 grand. So you're taking more people out of the equation all of the time by that. So not that many people have to pay it. Certainly the poorest in society don't have to pay it. The people have, but I get why some people get cross, because, you know, my mum worked all her life and she left my husband and I, you know, my mum and dad, and they left us their house, which thankfully it didn't get anywhere near the threshold. And I think that is the case for most families.
Henry, what do you think?
We're going through this at the moment. You know, as you know, we lost my mum a couple of months ago. Dad, we lost him 6 years ago. So there was a house. The threshold is £1 million, not £500,000 if it's two parents. And so you inherit those allowances. So 325,000 plus 175,000, you know, for the residential, times two parents. So it takes the vast majority of homes outside London and South East out of it. And the dead person isn't being taxed, they've gone. It is a tax on a capital gain, unearned income for the person who's received it. It may not feel fair because your parents worked hard and they wanted to give it to you, but we tax earned income, but we also have to tax capital gains. And this is a capital gain because, let's remember, it's £7.5 billion. We've been talking about schools in this programme. We've been talking about hospitals and doctors in this programme. In Jeremy's show, we were talking about the police. It all costs money. So this tax isn't going off into the upper atmosphere. No, it's being used to keep us as a highly developed country that gives services to people. It has to come from somewhere.
Well, there's also a theory that it spreads the wealth. I mean, at the moment, we've got a situation where the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And so if we take a little bit through that and give it, because, you know, if your parents earn a lot of money, that's great. It's not necessarily yours, you know. If they die, then maybe we should be paying maybe more tax. Sarah from Surrey, what do you think?
I think there is a place for inheritance tax.
Is 40% that place?
I think there is a big divide. We always talk about the north-south divide. Now, because I live in Surrey, it's assumed that everyone that lives in the southeast, and particularly Surrey, is particularly well off. I can only quote my own personal circumstances. As a single parent who worked 3 jobs to buy a very modest home that I could leave to my child, who incidentally is 28 and still living at home because they can't afford to get on the property ladder here, that my equivalent, maybe up north, wouldn't have to pay inheritance tax. However, they would. And also, it's not just a question about how much your house is worth. Having recently seen a solicitor, it's in terms of my savings, it's in terms of whether I have a car, everything is taken into account. So yes, I do feel there should be an inheritance tax. However, I do feel it should be at at an appropriate level
Sarah, can I say this
to
to you?
cover everyone in the country, regardless of where you live.
Sarah, as I'm sure your accountant has explained to you, there are lots and lots of loopholes, lots of get-out. Your solicitor.
Not my accountant.
Okay, yeah. Will have explained to you there are lots of ways around it that the very wealthy use. So your pensions at the moment are not subject to inheritance tax. You can gift some of your property or gift some of your possessions to your child. And if you die more than 7 years after, it's not taxed. There are several different things you can do. Sometimes where the unfairness is how it allows the very wealthy people to designate some of their property as agricultural or business, and that's not subject to inheritance tax, and it keeps the wealth among a very, very small tier of people.
But Sarah's also made a point...
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I quite understand that. However, this is where the disparity is that if you're very wealthy, that's fine. You may have money in your bank to gift to your child, but there are a lot of people who, the term is quite often used for the southeast, that you're property rich but bank account poor. Mm-hmm. So that's not always an option.
I've got you, Sarah. You make a very interesting point between the north and the south, because property prices are wildly different between the two of them. And if you are working 3 jobs in order to get your house as a single parent, I imagine you made incredible sacrifices, and part of those sacrifices may have been spending less time with your child, in which case, isn't the child due some of that money because they kind of worked for it too?
Yes, but as we've discussed, yes, although Sarah is in Surrey, I don't know what your property is worth currently, Sarah, and let's hope you have many healthy years ahead of you. But I mean, the threshold, if you're on your own, it'll be 500,000. If you're married with somebody, then it's £1 million. Now, unless you're in some kind of really lovely palatial part of Surrey, I don't know how much your house might be worth. But there are things you can do to help protect the inheritance that you're going to give to your child, and it's still unearned income. It's the sweat of your brow, your labours, not his or hers.
It's a sacrifice that she's made, and some of that sacrifice might have been spending less time with her child.
But these are choices that we make, as parents, I think,
But Sarah, thank you very much for your call. Stanley from Somerset, what's your thoughts?
I suffered from having capital gains tax against me from my father's estate, but notwithstanding that, I think if you've got 300,000 odd tax-free to start with, that's an adequate sum for most people. And you can, if you've got a clever solicitor, organise your will in a different way that you can avoid tax using trusts and things like that, or give away assets.
Stanley, you're absolutely right. For the very, very wealthy, they will find ways of avoiding this as best they can and managing their money so that they pay as little as possible, because they might have stuff that are a bit more flexible. They might have some finances that are a bit more flexible. But for someone like our earlier caller, that's not the same. They don't have the same flexibility. They will just have to pay that money. Now, OK, £325,000 is a huge amount of money, but down south in Surrey, for example, it's not going to get you very far in terms of a property.
No, well, where we live, it's not going to get you very far either. But the point is that money is coming to you. In most cases, you haven't done anything to earn it. I've always been a believer that when people moan about paying income tax, I think if you pay a lot of tax, you've earned a lot of money. And I think tax needs to be paid somewhere along the line. If it doesn't come from this, it will come from somewhere else. And I think this is less punitive on individuals.
All right, Stanley. Thank you very much. Next time you call, let's just turn the TV down a bit. But thank you. You made some great points. Sue from West Midlands, what's your thoughts?
Hi there. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Lovely. Yeah, I'm going to get caught up in the inheritance tax, and I didn't realise until a few weeks ago.
Okay.
I'm approaching retirement age. I'm divorced, and I have no children.
Oh, okay. Oh, so that would mean you would be not giving it to a descendant. I've got it.
What does that mean?
Well, if you don't have any children, you wouldn't be giving the money to your descendants, so that property wouldn't go up to the 500,000. That's what you're saying. So whoever you pass on your wealth too will have to pay the usual threshold of £325,000. What about the arguments that Henry's made, that previous callers have made, that actually whoever you're passing it on to didn't earn that money? It is capital that they have gained, and therefore they pay capital gains the same way you would if you sold your house, or, you know, we face it all the time.
Yeah, but when you've worked all your life and you're going to pay a mortgage until you're 75, and you've paid tax all your life, and you're expected to be able to pass on any wealth you might have made in your life onto your sister or nephew.
But
isn't 325,000 enough?
But if I've got more than 300, my property is only probably worth 350.
Does the sister, hang on, but does the sister not fall into this, Sue? Because I think it's a direct descendant of, you know, a member of the family.
A sister wouldn't.
Ah, right.
But Sue can name beneficiaries. But I mean, it's 325,000, but the tax is 40% on anything above that, but not including pensions and other things you set aside. Sue, I think you're quite canny. I know you're going to find ways around this.
Okay, but that's still asking her sister, while she's grieving for her sister, to pay £12,000 in order to potentially keep a house that she might feel she wants to keep for personal, emotional reasons. So I totally understand your quandary there. Thank you very much for your call. I hope you do come up with a solution, as Henry said. Thanks for all your calls on that.